Hello Stampers and welcome to Laura's Stamp Pad. I have had a couple requests lately on questions about die cutting, the Big Shot, the new Stampin' Cut and Emboss, and just die cutting in general. So I thought if one person has the question, 2 people have the question, 500 people have the question. So I thought I would do a video to showcase and answer those questions on die cutting with all of you today. So I actually have the Stampin' Up! Big Shot, which did retire, and then the new die cut and emboss machine that Stampin' Up! Just came out with. So I've done reveals for both of these. I can leave those in the links below just to show you like all the little bits and pieces. But really the two machines are very, very similar. They just have a few little things that make one, you know, a little better, a little worse, whatever you want to call that. Kind of depends on what you prefer whenever you're die cutting. But overall, a lot of it is the same. So I just wanted to go over some of those as well as the layering and the pieces and things like that so that you can get a little bit of a better handle on die cutting. Because let me tell you, it's super, super fun to die cut and emboss because it adds so much to your project. So if you have one of these or are thinking about getting one, I want you to know how to use it because you are going to love it as much as me. Let me tell you, when I got my first Big Shot, I was like, if this thing dies tomorrow, I'm buying another one immediately because it's just that amazing. And I use it on so many projects. So both of these are pretty similar. So I'm going to kind of go from one to the other just because then I don't have to keep mixing and moving all of my sandwiches around. So I just want to show you a couple things. So my super old Big Shot came with a multi-purpose platform that looked like this. It is hinged at the one side, but it has a thick tab, a thin tab, and then a regular base. Now, my second Big Shot that I purchased has, let's see, this one has the big base as well as a thin adapter die. So it has the 2 pieces rather than the 3 pieces. I think part of that is because some of the styles of dies retired from this version to this version, so they really didn't need that in between. I have to tell you, this tab is really, really thin. So some of you guys might have one of these if yours is older. Some of you guys might have this version. And then there's also the new version that is with the Stampin' Cut and Emboss. And that is, again, very similar pieces. The base and that thin adapter die. Now, the one thing that I super love about the new Stampin' Cut and Emboss, which is this one doesn't have names, it has numbers. And I find that to be so much easier because I've called these things, like this one's called multi-purpose platform. This one is called Big Shot platform. And then this one is just called number 1. And let me tell you, I find number 1, number 2 so much easier to find or to comprehend than some weird name, because I even called it a base plate. So what are you going to do? So I do love that, that this new style has numbers 1, 2, so that you know to layer 1 and 2, and you don't have to go, I don't know, which one is that? Because I will also say that these can like rub off or squish off or rip off or who knows what too. So again, I'm sure probably the 1s and 2s can too. But yeah, I just find the numbers to be so much easier than having to remember the name of something. So those are the main plates. Oh, I forgot. The other main plate that you'll have is your clear plate, which is not very clear anymore because it's well loved. So again, with the new version, it actually has a number 3. So 1, 2, and 3. The old version is just a clear plate. So But again, same concept of items. So we can mix and match any of those. And if you have any specific question that maybe I used a different one and it's still not working for you, then let me know in the comments below and I'll take care of that for you and answer that or do a whole new video if I have to. Because I'm more of a visual person than reading things. So yeah. So a couple of the other things that I wanted to let you guys know about is there's also a magnetic plate. And this magnetic plate is the same as this plate or this plate. It's just that regular base plate with a magnet in it. So anytime you want to use your magnet plate, you can use that in place of, again, that base plate. And you can tell because it's the same depth. The other thing is sometimes it's trial and error. And if you push it through and it's like really hard to crank, then you're doing something wrong. If it's really easy and just shoots right through, you're doing something wrong. So add a few more layers, take out a few layers, you'll get there. So it's kind of trial and error, but I'm gonna try to eliminate a few of those trials and errors. So again, magnetic plate. I have to be honest, I don't use my magnetic plate very often. I don't know, I just don't get it out very much. Then a couple other things. Now this one I use all the time, precision base plate. So the precision base plate has a sticker on one side. That is not the side that you want to use. Oh, it does say this is not a cutting surface, but that's okay because I've done it before. And then I went, oh no, because then I had a star, or hopefully it was a flower because you guys all know how much I love flowers. But so this side is the side that you use, not the sticker side. The precision base plate, I don't really know. Like supposedly it works really well with your intricate dies and giving extra squish and cush and everything to really get into all of those little bitty nooks and crannies of intricate dies. I actually mostly use mine because this is the same as one of these, but it's a lot harder, a lot thicker, and apparently it has that squish. So I'm just being real with you guys. I don't really know what the main thing is. I'm going to tell you the reason why I love it and I use it all the time is because normally your sandwich of your die and your cardstock go between two of these. So that means I'm using two of these with possible bends and wiggles and everything else. These are somewhat consumable items. You know, you have to replace them every once in a while. Sometimes they break. But in like my 16 years, I've only had like 2 crack, and they don't even crack like all the way through. They just kind of get like a little crack in them. And I use this a lot. Now I have some customers who say, oh my gosh, I can't believe yours look like that. Mine are still nice and flat, and all of mine look like cereal bowls. So, this is the same as one of these, and this is not going to bend, and it's not really a consumable item. Although you can see I really rub the edges of mine a lot, so it might eventually become a consumable item that I'm gonna have to replace, but it's fine, it'll be okay. But anyway, then I can only use one of these. So if I'm using this and only one of these, I'm getting more for my money because I bought 2 of these in a pack, and I'm only using one at a time. That is why I love the precision base plate. It's nice and flat, it's nice and secure, and it's a nice, great surface to be able to use. So anytime it says sandwich between 2 of these plates, 2 of the number 3s, 2 of the cutting plates, I just use my precision base plate and 1 of these. So let's start building some sandwiches and playing with a few of the different pieces. We also have this blue plate. This blue plate is a little bit thicker than one of the clear plates, and it is nice and flat and fairly clear. I can see you guys really well. You probably can't see me because it's blue. But this is used for embossing, and that's why it's nice and clean and secure and everything. It's not bowed like a cereal bowl. Okay, so let's start playing. We have our regular dies, and then I actually brought out 3 different styles of embossing folders. So there's this super thick style embossing folder, and then there's the thinner one, I hope you can see that one is thick. Well, not whenever, wait, these are both thick. Okay, so this is a thin one. I was just gonna show that this one's a small one, but okay, so you can see how this one is thinner than this one. And this one has like no give in it. And this one, you can just tell when they're thinner, then, you know, they're just a little bit like flimsier. This one's really thick. So the difference between these two is that this one is like a regular embossing folder, and this one is called that 3D texture embossing folder, where it's got like a lot more detail and intricate like levels. So like it's almost like it goes like this and then like this and like this, whereas the other embossing folder just goes like this, if that makes any sense. I feel like I'm a hot mess with like incorrect terminology with this video, but I hope that helps you guys relate a little bit more, because that's me. Okay, so we're going to start building some sandwiches to show you guys how to use these. And I'm going to show you some incorrect ways too, so that you can see what it means whenever it's really, really hard to crank through. So I have just the regular base platform, just the regular #1, just the regular multi-purpose platform. And we're going to take the really thick embossing folder, set it down. Technically, and this is, I don't always do it, so that's why I'm saying technically. Technically, you want the embossing folder to open up to the back side. So like I'm going to send it through that way. So you want it to open up to the back, like as if it's like letting out exhaust as it shoots through, if that makes sense. Wow, I feel like I'm a hot mess tonight with my words. But the reason for that is that if you put it this way and for some reason it like squishes, then it could like almost like pop and bow or something. I don't know. So technically it's supposed to go through that way. There's definitely times that I don't put it through that way. So it's not going to kill it, but maybe if you did it 500 times, it might kill it. Okay, so I have the base plate, the thick one, and then just one of the clear plates, and I'm going to send it through. And see how it's fair, like that very beginning where it catches is a little bit difficult, but it goes through just fine, okay? Now, if I were to take the embossing folder thick plate and do the same thing, you're gonna see it is not gonna go. Like I'm like pressing, it's almost like squishing out the back because it's not gonna go. So when that happens, we need to find something thinner than this, and that's where you go back to this plate. Another thing that you might do is if you have like the old style, the multi-purpose platform, and you go to use it, then you're going to also realize that it's way too thick. Like I'm going to have to break it to get it to go around. So again, you would just know, well, okay, let's start first by taking away tab 2 and then doing it and see if that works. Of course, make sure it's like nice and lined up so that it's not like going in crooked and then scratching up the sides like all of my other plates are. So now this is good. And this is perfect for how it's supposed to go through. If it kind of has a little oomph to catch and a little pop at the end whenever it's done, that's kind of like the perfect thing. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up the next tab. This one's so thin that I don't even know if it will really make a difference. But here, I'll go ahead and I'll use the thinner embossing folder and send this through, and like, it's way too easy. There was no pop. There was no oomph to kind of get it to catch. And you're also going to notice that your cardstock is not embossed. So that means we need to put one of the layers back. So that's where you kind of come up with that trial and error, where you just kind of need to try a few different ones and see what's going to work. Okay, so now we're going to scooch you over to this one. And I have tab 1, tab 1, embossing plate #1, cutting plate, whatever you want to call it. I have 1 and 2, and my precision base plate, because that's what I like to use for die cutting. Heck, I even use it sometimes for my embossing as that bottom layer if I need it, just because I don't always put away all my supplies. So if that's what's on there, then that's what I'm going to use. Why not? So this is the Tasteful Labels dies. I feel like I haven't done a video like this in forever where my whole face is like showing and not just a little square in the corner. And so I like can't be trusted. I'm just too crazy. So one of the other little tips and tricks for you is that anytime you're doing something that's like a square or a rectangle or has a straight edge, a lot of times it is much easier to put it in the die cutting machine at a diagonal. Because if you put it in and it goes straight across like this, there's going to be a major bump right here. And then it's hitting side to side, side to side to side to side, major bump right here. Sometimes when it does one of those major bumps, it almost like skips and pops over a smidge, or it's really hard to crank through. And so you don't always get a nice fine cut on that straight line. If you put it in at a diagonal, then it's hitting like a small area far apart the whole time. And so one, it's a little bit smoother going through and you usually end up with a perfect cut every time. Another tip that I have for you is any of your intricate dies, crank it through, crank it back, and then you should be good. Because it's always hard and frustrating whenever you crank it through, look at it, realize that it's not all the way cut through in that one spot, but trying to line it back up and trying to send it through again can sometimes be crazy too. So go ahead and just crank it through and back again. Something simple like this, I might not do that with, but something more intricate like, well, these are all labels. So like a flower with like a detailed, you know, petals or something like that, then I might do that. So anyway, I'm just going to place that in there and then turn it a little bit diagonal. And we're going to get plate number 3. So we're using 1, 2, 3 and precision base plate. And we're going to crank it through. So again, there was that little bit of catch where I kind of had to push and crank at the same time. And then the pop. And then here's the other pop at the other end. And then now it's pretty easy. And we just kind of, there was the pop. I was a little early on that one. So now we have this fabulous die cut image. And again, like if I were to have used this blue plate, it would have been way too thick and I would have been like killing myself to do it. So you should not be killing yourself to try to crank it through. Now I do know sometimes I like to stand. A lot of my customers also like to stand whenever they're stamping and crafting and everything. I'm not typically a stander whenever I'm stamping unless I really need to focus. But a lot of times I do stand whenever I am die cutting, which over here you can see is my die cutting station, and it is a little bit higher up, and I don't actually have any chairs or anything next to it because a lot of times I just walk over there, die cut it, and then come back. But yeah, if you're dying and breaking a sweat to try to do it, then it's probably too tight, and you might actually break your machine whenever you send it through. So like if I were to send this through, heck, I'm gonna send it through without any dies or cardstock in there, and like, no, like it's not catching. I'm cranking and it's not catching to pull through. So we know that that's a no-no and something's off, and we need to reduce our layers a little bit. So that's kind of embossing and die cutting, the different machines, the different plates, and trial and error with just seeing what works and making sure it's tall enough. One of the other things is if it's not tall enough, if it goes like this, that's not tall enough. It definitely just shot through, didn't even catch. It's not even hitting the rollers. I mean, it's obviously hitting the bottom roller because it's sliding over it. But you can tell that that one is not working, and you need to boost it up a little bit more. Of course, some of these, you know, come with the machine, so that might be all you have, and there's nothing wrong with that. It works perfectly. But then there are those add-on items like the precision base plate and the magnetic platform, and the little embossing one. If you don't have the embossing one to be able to do those thicker or thinner plates, then some of the other things that you can do is take a little piece of cardboard and use it as a shim. There's the designer series paper that Stampin' Up! Sells, has that little piece of cardboard with the name and everything on the back to help hold the cardstock or the designer series paper to stay nice and 12 by 12 and not get nicked up corners or anything in shipping. So you can always use some of that and use that as a shim if you ever have problems where you don't have the correct plate to be able to make it fit. So I hope all those little tips and tricks help you. I hope I didn't confuse you anymore. If you have any questions on this specifically, then let me know in the comments below and I would be happy to answer those. I just want you to love embossing and die cutting as much as me because it really can take your project to the next level. So I hope you guys will have a wonderful day and I hope you enjoy die cutting with minimal frustration. Happy stamping, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.